I titled this presentation to be Cloud Adoption to Foster Innovation and Emerging Technology. I heard from one of the panelists that he hoped that the government can adopt cloud solutions into their services. So to achieve cloud adoption in the governments, four main challenges have to be addressed. The first one is that data centers cost a lot of money, so there is a lot of spending on the CapEx to build the data centers. On the other side, we see that low efficiencies of utilization of these data centers. So this is number one. Number two, lack of cloud expertise and cloud migration capacities. Nowadays, maybe in the region, we still have a lack of expertise within the cloud domain. The third one, which is lack of cloud supply in the countries, in the region, especially hyperscalers. There is tremendous efforts nowadays in the region to bring hyperscalers to open their, to have a location in the region. Saudi Arabia is doing a great effort. Bahrain did one with Amazon. And we hope that Oman and Emirates bring all of those hyperscalers to the region to benefit from the amazing services offered by the cloud service provider. The last one, which is low cloud adoption and awareness. Nowadays, I think that governments have very low cloud adoption of cloud services. Yet commercial or the private sector are benefiting from some cloud services that are resides out the region. However, within the governments, the adoption is still low. So what we did in order to foster the cloud adoption within the government, we have identified 6 different streams. Nowadays, I work with the Digital Government Authority, and we're working on this file, so that's why I decided to start with this topic. First, that you need to identify the baseline of the cloud adoption within the government and identify the opportunities. Second, you need to set policies, regulations, standards to foster the adoption of the cloud services. Third stream is that we need to focus on certain initiatives to transit the government services to the cloud. Then we need to monitor the compliance of the government entities for the cloud adoption. Throughout this journey, we will engage the stakeholders, which is the government entities, regulators, and other entities within the government within this journey. Of course, awareness is a big player within this journey. Building the digital capacity and the capabilities, local capabilities who can help within this journey. Also, it's also an important. Through benchmarking, we identified 9 prevailing processes implemented by leading countries to achieve cloud adoption into 3 different value chains. Shape, where you shape in terms of the regulations, the standards, and strategies to allow the execution of the cloud adoption. Then the last one is to monitor and report. Leading countries do share the same patterns in the operating model for shaping cloud adoption and data center consolidation. We have looked to the top-ranked countries in terms of the digital governments, such as United States, UK, Germany, Australia, South Korea, and all of them, they do have cloud vision. So these 6 countries, they are in the top 20 countries in terms of the digital governments. So among those 6 countries, we have seen that all of them, they share the same approach. That they do have a cloud vision, they have a cloud strategy, they have a roadmap, they have ambitions towards cloud adoption. For the execution, we need to manage the demand and supply for cloud services. Of course, promote the use of the cloud services and provide consultancy on cloud adoption, execute migration to the cloud. In order to facilitate this, I believe we have seen that all of these leading countries, they do have a digital marketplace where they manage the demand and supply by opening and closing the digital marketplace for new suppliers to provide their services to the government entities. Of course, monitoring the cloud adoption journey is important once you have set the strategies, and then you help them to adopt these cloud services. You need to monitor the adoption level of the cloud services. This is just to show how do we see that within the government, how do we connect government entities with the CSPs and coordinate this with the set of regulators. In Saudi Arabia, we have CITC, where they sit or they certify the CSPs to work in Saudi Arabia, and they classify them based on their readiness to provide services to the government entities with the help with the NCA, the National Cybersecurity Agency, and with the National Data Management Office, where the cybersecurity classify the CSPs based on their compliance of the local cybersecurity controls. And of course, the data privacy, which is the big player with this game, that the government entities, they do have a classified data. Then there is a government entity who is responsible to tell who can serve government entities based on the data classification. So we have 3 different classes: Class A, Class B, Class C. Some service providers are classified to be in Class C, where they serve the government entities with the sensitive data. Class B also another level. Class A also a 3rd level. Among those, they need to comply with the certifications of their data centers. They have to comply with the cybersecurity and data regulations within the country. Once they are ready to serve the government, once they provided the whole the requirement, then they will be eligible to provide cloud services to the government. For us, what we need to orchestrate, or we need to link the government entities with the CSPs. And for this coordination, we need to govern and monitor, and we need to plan and develop. So we have identified multiple practices to tackle these challenges. It is 7 different, I will break it down in a bit to show that we haven't left anyone behind in the government, in the government, to help this adoption of the cloud services within the government. So the first practice, we call it Government Cloud Adoption Strategy and Target. Second one, Digital and Cloud Technology Framework. Cloud Investments Guidance and Enablement. Cloud Supply Management and Enhancement. Cloud Adoption Awareness and Support. Cloud Adoption Planning and Execution. Compliance and Progress, Governance and Monitoring. These practices, we hope that it will benefit the cloud adoption in different domains, and this is 100% is aligned with our Vision 2030, where we need to enhance effectiveness of financial planning and efficiency of government spendings. So most of the government spendings, I believe, when we talk about ICT, we see that most of the spending on the CapEx, where we need to move that spendings into the OpEx instead of the CapEx, and leave the CapEx spendings and operation and maintenance with the CapEx to the CSPs. Develop the e-government, attract foreign direct investments, develop the digital economy, support national champions, consolidate their leadership globally, among others, that is as part of the Vision 2030. So here we break it down a bit, these 7 practices within the, and for each one, and I haven't put the who are responsible for each one, but for each block of these breakdown of these practices, there is a responsible entity within the government that we make sure that this will lead to or to foster the cloud adoption within the government. For the first one, which is government cloud adoption strategy and targets, we have to define a vision and an ambition for digital government. So we have a vision. We have to reach 80% of the government services move to the cloud in the next 5 years. We set cloud adoption targets. We define government-wide strategic initiatives. We execute government-wide strategic initiatives within the digital and cloud technology framework practice. We break it down to develop digital cloud policies and regulatory framework. In 2019, we announced the first cloud-first policy. This is by the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, where it highlighted, it highlights in general what are the roles of different big entities in the government. After that, we published, we did the first strategy in 2020, and out of that, we came up with the cloud regulatory framework, and that was for the CSPs. Then develop technical cloud standards for the government, develop cloud supply standards for the government, which is, we're working on to set a set of standards that we believe that these standards on the demand supply, demand, I mean the government entities, and the supply side, the CSPs, that will foster the cloud adoption. I don't want to go into details of each one, but I believe the most important that we need to, within the cloud supply management and enhancement, we need to assess the cloud demand and supply and how we bridge the gap between the demand and supply. It is not only this, that what other initiatives that we need to come up with to facilitate this journey for the government entities. Plus the awareness campaigns and marketing campaigns. We need, we have initiated a couple of initiatives to upskill the competencies in the cloud domain. One of the most important part as well is the streamlining and accelerate procurement and govern and manage digital marketplace. We have announced multiple of national framework agreements for IaaS, for BaaS, and for SaaS. So these two, it's fast track for the governments to procure cloud services without going into the long process of procurement process within the government. So this is some aspects that to expedite and allow them to migrate to the cloud. We need to give them a fast track for the cloud adoption. Of course, the success of the cloud program will build long-lasting foundation for modernization and digitalization of the government services. Of course, refresh and modernize outcome of these efforts. The legacy data centers within the government will be modernized and will be refreshed by, depending on the CSPs in Saudi Arabia. Of course, plan and optimize migration cost, cloud market understanding, maximize return on investments. Okay, so this is great. Now the end goal that now we expedite or we foster the cloud adoption with the government. Why we're doing this? We're doing this so the government entities can will be able to innovate and to benefit from the emerging tech, such as AI technologies, robotics, data analytics, blockchain, among others. There is no way that each government entity will develop their AI solutions. Each government entity will build their own data analytics stack. Each government entities, so there is no way of doing this. So plus this, cloud computing, AI, IoT, and robotics are, of course, of top disruptive technologies in terms of potential global economic impact with applications cutting across various functions. Here I wanted to shed lights on, okay, now we enable them to move to the cloud. Plus this, we need to identify what are the AI technologies that is across different sectors that we are ready to adopt within, and it's strategically important for us, and we have our readiness is high. So this is just an value chain that shows the value chain of the AI and across different sectors in Saudi Arabia. We see that time series analytics are important, face recognition, optical character recognition, where we have in the government we still depends on the paper on the papers, and we have a lot of documents being archived. All of this in Arabic, and it has to be moved to the cloud. But when we're moving it, we're not moving it just in terms that we're copying it or scanning it and saving it in a PDF format, but we need to have it in a digital form where we need to work on the optical character recognitions to transfer these images into a digital format. Object recognition, change recognition, video analytics, audio analytics, all of these will facilitate the smart cities. Nowadays, these services are already mature in the market, having enabled the governments to benefit from these services. Of course, cloud is a must. Voice recognition within the behavioral understanding and prediction, we see sentiment analysis, personality understanding, natural language processing, also in terms of text to speech, speech to text. I mean, in Arabic nowadays we have many R&D institutes. They have a kind of mature prototypes with respect to the speech recognition and text to speech. Having them on the cloud and allowing the government entities to benefit from these engines, of course, will expedite the digital transformation within the country. So this is just to highlight some projects that we've worked on. One is call it AI-based satellite imagery suite for urban analysis. So we worked on how do we develop. We in Saudi Arabia we do have satellites, and we collect data from these satellites. However, having data from these satellites by itself is not beneficial. You need to come up with analytics on top of it that benefit the urban development, and يعني, one use case was with one of the telecommunication companies in order to help them on their expansion يعني, planning. They need to have يعني, analytics on the buildings and clusters يعني, growth, the number of يعني, the growth of buildings in one region in automated way. I don't think that we have the time to go in depth into يعني, what the capability of this. Just I wanted to highlight some examples that is يعني, based on AI, having that يعني, centralized engine within each entity will not يعني, help the digital transformation in country wide. Having it on the cloud and allow the government to have the cloud services and benefit from that engine for whatever purpose. This is what we call digital government. Here some sample IoT use cases in the oil and gas, manufacturing, logistics, mining, and electricity. Again, if the government entities, if they don't have an access to these cloud services where those يعني, analytics engines resides, they will not at all be able to يعني, to adopt IoT concept. And it will remain within the private sector where they يعني, provide it in standalone solutions to certain entities. Within the robotics domain as well, يعني, we have worked hard to see also how the AI mixed with the data analytics, mixed with the robotics adoption, also will foster the advancements in the government sectors. We see that the robotics could be, there are many use cases that the government entities could use it. They could use it within their warehouses, within the health sector. They can use it within the pharmaceutical sector to automate the pharmaceutical process. It could be used in many different cases. However, having stand-alone solutions or robotics arms by itself without having an access to the cloud services will keep it. It is like just a task-oriented. To conclude this session, I just want to emphasize that the government entities have to move to the cloud. The fear from the data privacy is there, but I believe by having standards, regulations to protect this data within the countries, it's a must. Bringing hyperscalers to the governments to benefit from the cloud services as an enabler, or cloud computing as enabler of the emerging tech is a must.